In the quiet outskirts of Ravenwood, a town surrounded by dense, shadowy forests and forgotten ruins, there lurked a legend that parents whispered about only at night. It was the tale of the Shade Whisperer, a man said to have lost his own child in the woods and, driven mad by grief, began abducting other children to fill the void. Hollow Grove, the vast stretch of wild woods and abandoned buildings, was said to be his hunting ground. Locals described the Shade Whisperer as a terrifying figure. Some said he had a twisted hand, like a hook, and his face was marred with burns and scars, making him look like something out of a nightmare. His presence was so feared that children were warned never to stray into the woods alone. But as often happens with legends, the physical details grew exaggerated over time to make the story even more chilling. Behind this myth was a man named Elias Thorne, born in the late 1940s. Elias had worked as a janitor at the Ravenwood School for Children with Special Needs. In 1984, an incident shocked the town. Elias took a school bus full of kids without permission and drove it miles away to the abandoned airfield on the town's edge. Although no children were harmed and they were rescued safely, the incident raised alarm bells. Parents were uneasy about Elias. He would often be seen talking to children, sometimes taking them for walks or to the diner. While some saw it as kindness, many felt uneasy about his intentions. Over the years, several children went missing, and Elias was frequently the last person to be seen with them, though no one could definitively prove his involvement. Meanwhile, the Ravenwood School was no sanctuary. Inside its walls, children endured harsh discipline, neglect, and worse. The administration turned a blind eye to many abuses, and rumors swirled about the terrible conditions hidden from the public eye. Despite suspicion and rumors, it was years before Elias Thorne was finally arrested in 1989. His dark past and connection to the missing children made him a suspect. In many cases, but without clear proof, many charges didn't stick. The town of Ravenwood was left with a haunting question. Was the Shade Whisperer just a legend, or a man who truly walked among them, hiding horrors behind a friendly smile? Years before Elias Thorne became infamous in Ravenwood, the town itself was a place steeped in secrets. Hollow Grove, with its thick forests and dilapidated buildings, was once a lively area for children to play. But the mysterious disappearances and rumors changed everything. Elias's childhood was marked by tragedy. Born in the late 1940s, he grew up in a broken home. His own younger brother vanished without a trace one summer, leaving a void that Elias could never fill. This loss seemed to fracture his mind over time. As a young man, he drifted from one low-paying job to another until finally finding work as a custodian at the Ravenwood School. The school itself had a dark reputation. Meant for children with learning difficulties and behavioral challenges, it was plagued by neglect and abuse. Staff were often accused of mistreating the kids, and many parents kept their children at home when they could. But the school was also one of the few places where Elias could be close to children, something that both unnerved and fascinated those who knew him. On warm summer evenings, parents would often warn their children not to go near the woods. Tales of the Shade Whisperer had become a part of local folklore, a terrifying figure with a twisted hook for a hand who prowled the shadows. Yet no one ever truly saw him, only the aftermath of his deeds. When children began to disappear in the early 1980s, fingers quickly pointed towards Elias. He was known to be the last person seen with some of the missing kids, yet each time the authorities tried to link him to the crimes, they hit dead ends. The community grew restless. Parents held vigils in the town square, demanding answers. Some took to patrolling the woods themselves, searching for any sign of their children. But Hollow Grove held its secrets tight. Meanwhile, Elias's odd behavior intensified. He would wander the woods alone for hours, talking to himself. Locals reported seeing strange lights flickering among the trees late at night. Some believed Elias was trying to communicate with something unseen. The legend of the Shade Whisperer grew, fed by fear and sorrow. But behind the myth was a man trapped in his own torment, struggling with a past that refused to let go. As the 1980s progressed, the atmosphere in Ravenwood grew more tense. The disappearances had not stopped, and the town's fear morphed into paranoia. Every unfamiliar face was eyed with suspicion. Every strange noise was a cause for alarm. And at the center of it all was Elias Thorne. Despite multiple investigations, the police found little concrete evidence linking Elias to the missing children. He was often cooperative, but evasive during questioning, adding to the mystery. Many townsfolk whispered about his strange nocturnal habits, that he was seen roaming the woods under the cover of darkness, sometimes carrying odd tools and supplies. One particularly chilling incident occurred in 1984, when a local girl named Melissa Harper vanished after attending a summer fair. Witnesses last saw her talking to a man fitting Elias's description near the edge of Hollow Grove. A search party found traces of footprints, but no sign of the girl. Rumors intensified that Elias was using the ruins deep in the forest as a hideout, perhaps even a prison for his captives. The old warehouses and broken foundations became a focal point of fear. Some teenagers dared each other to explore the ruins, only to return with tales of strange sounds, flickering lights, and shadowy figures watching from the trees. Despite public outcry, the authorities were hesitant to arrest Elias without stronger proof. But the truth was slowly unraveling behind closed doors. Inside the school, dark secrets began to surface. Former students spoke about abuse and neglect, recounting horrific experiences. Some even claimed Elias had a sinister influence over the other staff, orchestrating punishments and silencing dissent. The local press caught wind of these stories, and soon headlines screamed about the Ravenwood horror. The community's trust was shattered, and calls for reform grew louder. Elias Thorne became a symbol of fear, part myth, part man, and the legend of the Shade Whisperer intertwined with his real-life crimes. But beneath the horror was a tangled web of pain, neglect, and unanswered questions. By the mid-1980s, Ravenwood was a town on edge. The disappearance of children had become a dark shadow hanging over the community. The pressure on local law enforcement to solve the mystery was immense, but the lack of evidence made progress slow and frustrating. Elias Thorne's behavior became increasingly erratic. He started avoiding public places and kept to himself. Some neighbors noticed strange noises coming from his small cabin near the woods, whispers, cries, and sometimes silence that felt heavy and unnatural. In 1987, a breakthrough came. 12-year-old Jennifer Willis vanished without a trace. This time, witnesses confirmed Elias was seen near Jennifer's last known location. Police arrested him on suspicion of kidnapping. During the investigation, the authorities uncovered disturbing evidence inside Elias's cabin. Remnants of toys, children's clothing, and strange symbols carved into the walls. Although no bodies were found, the evidence was enough to hold him for questioning. At the same time, a group of former Willowbrook school students came forward to testify about the abuse they had suffered. Their stories painted a horrific picture of the school's dark underside, implicating staff members, including Elias. The media frenzy grew. Headlines screamed about the Ravenwood monster. The town, once divided between fear and disbelief, united in outrage and demand for justice. Despite the public's belief in his guilt, the case against Elias was complicated. Without concrete proof of murder, prosecutors charged him with kidnapping and assault. Still, the evidence pointed to a man deeply troubled and dangerous. Elias Thorne was sentenced to prison in 1988, a moment of relief for many, but the scars left on Ravenwood would not heal quickly. After Elias Thorne was imprisoned, the people of Ravenwood hoped that the nightmare would finally end. However, the mysteries surrounding the disappearances were far from over. More children vanished in the following years, and the community's fear returned with a vengeance. Investigations revealed that Elias was just one piece of a much larger, more disturbing puzzle. Former staff members at Willowbrook School were implicated in a network of abuse and neglect that spanned decades. It became clear that the institution, which was supposed to protect vulnerable children, had instead become a breeding ground for horror. Whistleblowers came forward with evidence of secret meetings, cover-ups, and threats aimed at silencing victims. Many families spoke out about missing children who were never officially reported, lost in the shadows of the system. The media intensified their coverage, exposing corruption at multiple levels. Local officials faced criticism for ignoring warnings and failing to act promptly. Public outrage reached a boiling point, leading to demands for systemic reform. A new task force was created to investigate not only the disappearances, but also the dark history of Willowbrook School. This task force uncovered chilling documents and testimonies that painted a grim picture of institutional failure and abuse. Survivors bravely shared their stories, shedding light on the truth that many had tried to hide. The town began the painful process of healing and accountability, realizing that the real horror was not just in Elias Thorne, but in the system that allowed him to operate unchecked. The revelations about Willowbrook and Elias Thorne shook Ravenwood to its core. Many wondered how such horrors could persist for so long without detection. The task force's work led to the closure of Willowbrook School, and numerous arrests followed. But for the survivors and families of the missing children, justice was only the beginning of a long journey. Counseling centers were established, and community programs aimed at healing and support became a priority. Elias Thorne remained imprisoned, his reputation forever tied to the pain of a generation. However, during his time in prison, he refused to speak about his crimes, maintaining a haunting silence that left many questions unanswered. The town of Ravenwood began to rebuild its sense of safety and trust. New laws were introduced to protect children and ensure stricter oversight of institutions dealing with vulnerable populations. Memorials were erected in honor of the missing children, serving as a reminder of the past and a commitment to never allow such tragedies to happen again. Over time, Ravenwood transformed from a place marked by fear into a community determined to protect its future generations. The scars remained, but so did hope. Years have passed since the darkest days of Willowbrook and the terror of Elias Thorne. Ravenwood has changed, but the echoes of its past still linger in the minds of its people. The story of Elias Thorne and the haunted woods became a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can hide behind the most ordinary faces and places. Schools and institutions across the country adopted stricter measures to protect children. Inspired by the lessons learned from Willowbrook's failures, families who lost loved ones founded advocacy groups to fight for children's rights, helping to ensure no child would ever suffer in silence again. Ravenwood now celebrates its resilience. Annual memorials honor the missing and the survivors, fostering a community dedicated to vigilance and care. The woods, once feared as the hunting grounds of a monstrous figure, have been reclaimed by the community as a place of healing and remembrance. Trails are marked with plaques telling the stories of courage and survival. The legacy of Cropsey, the terrifying urban legend, has transformed into a real story of justice, loss, and hope. It reminds us that while darkness may exist, so does the light of human strength and compassion.